Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream this afternoon. Just going to make sure I am live on the other screen. I just went for a walk earlier this morning. It was around lunchtime and it was 67 degrees outside. It was a beautiful day and we had a little shot of hot weather last week, but I'm hoping we don't get any more like 95-degree days this year. And I am very ready for the fall. Summer is probably, I like the beach and going to the beach, but if I'm not at the beach, I think summer is my least favorite season just because of how hot it is here. So happy to finally get relief. I do have a postcard of the week to show you all today. This one is one that I bought at the Georgia Postcard Show a couple weeks ago. This is the chicken pig. A little play on words there. Chicken and pig dining room. Just a really nice roadside diner. It's actually, let's see. Let's see if it's still here. Um, Surely the building is not still there. I am getting over a cold, as you might be able to tell, but I'm feeling much better than I was at this time last week, which is part of the reason why I didn't do a live stream last week. Let's see, 1260 Kings Avenue in Jacksonville is now a parking lot next to the Garden Inn. There's also a bank in that parking lot. So yeah, sadly, this is long gone. But I just thought it was a really neat card. I think I looked on the back. There's nothing, super interesting on the back, but I did pay $12 for this card, it looks like, at the Georgia Postcard Show. But I love the architecture of these, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s diners. And I know there are a ton of collectors of diners like this, but I think it's for a good reason. And I'm accumulating, not a super large collection myself, but I probably have 15 or 20 diners like this now in my own collection. And I wish they would make restaurants like this nowadays. I don't know why the restaurants now are just so boring. It's like just gray and just everything is blocky. You know the modern architecture style, but every restaurant is pretty much updating to the new style that's just so lame. Nancy says hello, hello. Welcome in, Nancy. Hodgepodge Home Goods says hi. Welcome in, Hodgepodge. Byron, sorry, says I'm in Texas. Summer sucks here too. Yeah, it's man, I looked up the other day, or maybe I just saw, a weather person post about it somewhere, but because it feels like summers are so much hotter than when I was a kid, and sure enough, the number of 90-degree days that we get per year in Athens, Georgia has like more than doubled since I was a kid, so it's not just in my head that the summer is much hotter, but I kind of remember, I'm not, I don't remember like what the temperature was like super long ago, but I've always been interested in the weather since I was a kid. And I remember, it used to be kind of like a big deal when it was over 90 degrees. Like that was pretty hot and it didn't get to 90 degrees like super often. And now we just have weeks where it's just 90 degrees every single day for like 3 weeks straight. But I am very, very happy to get some relief. And I'm just going to look at the weather and, make myself a little happy. So yeah, it's 76 right now. The high today is 77 degrees. The low temperature tonight is 55 degrees. So yeah, that's the perfect weather. It is going to get a little bit warmer. It looks like this next week it'll be in the mid 80s, but that's much better than we have been. And man, if I just love going on walks when it's like in the 60s and 70s. It's just so nice. And I know this weather can't last forever, but I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. Hopefully, we get a month or two of weather similar to this at least. Daisy says hi. Welcome in, Daisy. Pam Card. Is that short for Pam Postcard? Pam says hello. Welcome in, Pam. Nancy says when a buyer buys several postcards, and actually I love this beautiful postcard, but now that I'm not talking about it anymore, I'm going to take it off the screen. Nancy says when a buyer buys several postcards, a tone, a tone, at a time, alone, from me, accepting their offer, do you automatically combine them or ask the buyer and wait for an answer? I I automatically combine them, but sometimes some slip through the cracks. So I try to do it when the buyer buys them, but if it's like the weekend and I'm not paying attention or they buy some overnight, sometimes I don't refund them the difference. But I'd say most of the time I just refund the difference in shipping, and I haven't. Of course, if they ask and I forgot, I will certainly refund them. I know some sellers have different thoughts about this. Some sellers just, you know, don't refund and just keep the extra in shipping. And I can see both sides there. Sometimes if it's like, somebody that's been giving me a lot of trouble and their offers are kind of low, I'll just keep the extra shipping as like a, you know, you're not my favorite buyer fee. But if most of the time, yeah, I will refund any shipping overages, and I think it creates goodwill towards the customer because eBay now automatically charges buyers, or they have been for a while, automatically charging buyers when you accept the offer as a seller. So in the past, it was much easier because buyers could just wait to check out. I like it better that it automatically charges buyers because a lot of buyers would just make offers and then go days or longer without paying. But one downside to eBay automatically charging the buyers is there's no good way to combine shipping for accepted offers. So yeah, I think it creates goodwill, and the less hoops a buyer has to jump through to get a little refund for shipping or whatever. I know a lot of buyers probably won't care, but I think it's good at creating repeat customers. And yeah, I'm not, you know, sometimes a few slip through the cracks, or yeah, like I said, if I have a problem buyer and they're just, and some buyers I will, if it if they send an offer, like if they sometimes I think buyers kind of send me offers knowing that they'll have to pay two shipping costs. So like if I have two cards listed for $20 and my shipping is $1.50, and somebody sends me an offer of $17 on one card and $15.50 on another card, I'm assuming that that buyer is calculating the second shipping cost that they're paying into their offer price. So in cases like that, I won't send a refund unless they ask for it, and then I'll begrudgingly send a refund. But yeah, I do it in most cases. I automatically, or not automatic, I wish it was automatic, I manually refund buyers for extra shipping costs. But I do keep, so my shipping policy is that I charge $1.50 for shipping for a single postcard. And for each additional postcard you buy that's under $20, it's 20 cents additionally. And I will keep that fee when a buyer buys multiple postcards on offers. So I'll just refund $1.30 in shipping unless they're, and unless they make me a pretty good offer and they're like, hey, can you please refund shipping? Then I'll probably just refund $1.50. Sorry, that's probably way more complicated than you ever wanted to know. Brian said the reason the buildings are boring is that these fast food places are really in the real estate business. This way they can easily switch the buildings to another brand when the first one fails. Yeah, we have, sorry, that just made me think of the Arby's restaurant we have in town. And let me share my screen. Uh, and I go to this, actually, I might go to this Arby's tonight. I love Arby's. Arby's is one of my favorite fast food restaurants. But the Arby's, uh, yeah, we're on, what are we on? Shutterstock. That's weird. This is the Arby's. Why is it on like yeah, the Arby's here is on a lot of stock photo websites because it's so photogenic, I guess. Let me share my screen. Share screen. Now, this is the Arby's we have here, which still has the classic sign. I don't think it lights up anymore. Actually, I don't know if I'll have to go. I don't really go by there. I don't think I've ever been there by there at night, um, after hours. But I don't know for sure if it lights up. But they still have the classic Arby's sign at least, which is, um, you know, even though the building is more modernized, like that classic hat design. Yeah, you said they're in the real. Yeah, they have a lot of fast food places have some valuable real estate they're sitting on. And yeah, they're not. They used to be so. The designs used to be so much more unique. Where if it was a chicken place, maybe they'd have like a half a bucket of chicken on top of the restaurant or something. Alan L says, "Hey everyone, welcome in, Alan." Philip Biderbeck says, "Hi all, welcome in, Phil." Good turnout today. Happy to see everybody. Alan says, "I was so busy packing up postcards and printed the label, pulled the label, backing off, and stuck the label on the postcard, not the envelope. Luckily, it was a white border card and it came off. Wow, that would be, yeah, thank goodness that wasn't a, thank goodness it came off, and thank goodness it wasn't like a super valuable card. Imagine if you pasted that on like a really nice real photo or Halloween card or something like that. Yeah, that's knock on wood. I've never done that, but I feel your pain. Glad that came off. Nancy said, "Your postcard reminds me when I first moved to Chicago. I was living in the west suburbs. There was an original White Castle near me." Oh, cool. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the fast food places are definitely what's the right word? Condensing, it seems like. It just seems like there's less and less of the kind of not dominant fast food places, and you just see like the same three or four fast food places everywhere. McDonald's and Subway for sure, but we had a Checkers here, kind of near the Arby's that I just showed you, and the Checkers recently shut down. But those smaller fast food places, I feel like, are closing very at a very rapid pace, or maybe getting bought out or whatever. But yeah, White Castle is one of those that I feel like is going extinct too, along with Checkers. Although, I say that, but I don't know if I've ever been to a Checkers as an adult. Daisy said, "How do you handle international shipping?" I just use eBay International Shipping. I don't ship any postcards internationally myself. And eBay International Shipping is great for sellers, and for buyers, it's not as great, but international orders are a very small part of my business, probably, or surely I would think less than 5%. So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I did have some pretty big international orders this last week, but I think it was still definitely less than 5% of my total. But yeah, with eBay International Shipping, you just ship it to the eBay hub, and then eBay ships it to the buyer. Once the item gets to the eBay hub, your job is done. So if a buyer complains about the slow shipping time or opens up a case or anything, eBay actually handles that directly. So that's why I love using it as a seller. But the buyers don't really love it because it's a pretty high shipping cost, and it's a little bit longer than if you ship directly to the buyer because it has to go to an eBay hub and get repackaged. I haven't heard as many complaints from buyers recently about slow shipping time on international orders, so maybe it's gotten better, but I don't sell a ton of postcards internationally. Um, yeah, I usually have a couple a week, maybe probably five or less per week out of 150 plus orders. So it's not a huge part of my business, but and I wouldn't I just don't feel comfortable sending with a stamp. It's against the USPS regulations to send merchandise that has been paid for with a stamp, and with all like the tariff stuff, that could be, trying to skirt the laws and avoid the tariffs. So I just don't send anything with a stamp, and packages to ship tracked mail out of the US. It's just about the same cost as eBay International Shipping, so that's why I just use international shipping instead of trying to do it myself. Philip said, "Big Arby's fan here." Yeah, man, we're talking about it. I'm probably gonna have to go get it for dinner. But every time I go, I get usually a beef and cheddar. Depending on how hungry I am, is what level of the beef and cheddar I get. I think they have like I don't know what they call them, but it's like a small, medium, and large beef and cheddar. Maybe they even have like a super loaded beef and cheddar. But I think Arby's is or beef and cheddar is like the classic Arby's sandwich, I feel like. And yeah, I get their mozzarella sticks and usually an apple turnover. So um, I know other restaurants have, or other fast food places have like the turnovers now, but the mozzarella sticks, and I don't know, I like curly fries, but I like the mozzarella sticks a lot better. The mozzarella sticks and the beef and cheddar, I feel like, are just classic Arby's dishes. And, we were talking recently, I got Arby's for my family when we were hanging out a few months ago now, and I don't know why, but we were reading more about the history of Arby's. And I think it originally started as like an upscale fast food restaurant, and their prices were much higher than McDonald's. And it looks the if I can maybe see Arby's in the old days. But I'm pretty sure it used to be like an upscale, or it was trying to be a more upscale. Obviously not the case anymore. Yeah, not getting many image results for Arby's in the old days. Let's see, Arby's history inside. Here we go. Well, you can't see a ton from that. Yeah, that doesn't even, that's just a black and white photo. That's not even old. Okay, I'm not finding any good pictures for the history of Arby's, so you'll just have to take my word for it that I'm pretty sure it used to be a lot more upscale. And it's, I mean, I don't really go to many fast food places. I know McDonald's has gotten a lot more expensive because I don't even think they have a dollar menu anymore, which the only thing McDonald's really had going for it for me was that it was so cheap. And if I'm going to pay the same at McDonald's than I am at like Arby's, I'm going to go to Arby's every day. And at, other places that are kind of, what do you call like Jersey Mike's and Firehouse? I guess those are fast food, right? Just sandwich places. But I consider them definitely a class above like McDonald's. I'm an everything seller and just got a bunch of postcards, trying to figure out the best way to know it's valuable. Also, just debating if it's easier to lot it all and bulk sell. I would, it depends on what you have. If the postcards that you have in general are mostly like postcards that are under $10, it might be easier to just sell it as a lot. But if you have some really nice ones in there, it's probably worth your time to go through it and pick out some of the better cards and sell those individually. Let me know what, the general aura is of the lot. Is it a lot of town views? Is it US town views? Is it holiday cards? Are they mostly early 1900s? Are they like mid-century postcards? Let me know what the vibes are and I'll tell you what to look for valuable postcards. Are there black and white ones? Um, Jay Barson said, I've had problems with eBay Global Shipping. The carrier tossed the parcel onto my sidewalk in the middle of a puddle during a rainstorm. Fortunately, it was not damaged. Yeah, like I said, it's not as good for the buyer, but great for the seller because in that situation, you wouldn't have to deal with that as a seller. They would just get routed directly to eBay, and eBay would have to make that right. And actually, I had somebody send me a really strange message the other day. It's like, what are you going on about? Um, well, they left me a feedback and then sent me a message, and they were like, I'm gonna revise my feedback. And I replied and I was like, I don't really care because it's a neutral feedback, so whatever you want to do is fine. Obviously, I didn't say that in those words, but that's what I felt. I was like, okay, I don't know why you would send me this long message about a neutral feedback. Let me see if I can find it. Oh wow, I have 38 automated feedback. So eBay is now leaving automated feedback for buyers if they don't leave feedback themselves after a certain length of time, I think. And shipping, I think tracking has to show delivered, and I think the buyer has to not leave feedback themselves after a certain period of time. And I think the buyer can overwrite the eBay automatic feedback if they want to leave feedback later. But so this is a neutral feedback that somebody left me, which I was just confused because like this just sounds like it should be a positive feedback. But they said my heart sank when I saw the warped, water damaged envelope. We had an unexpected flooding event, and my mailbox is not protected. At first, I thought the card inside was ruined, but thankfully it was only the Mailseum thank you note. I put like a thank you postcard in all my orders, which is not in a sleeve and is also there to serve as additional protection to postcards. My purchase postcard survived thanks to its protective sleeve. I use team bags for trading cards for this reason. Photos provided. All good in the end, but a reminder, protection is paramount. So I don't know what they were really trying to say. Like, the postcard that you bought was $1.50 in shipping, and I ship it with a semi-rigid envelope, and I put the postcard in a sleeve, and I put the like postcard thank you note in there as a little extra stiffener and protection. And your postcard was fine, even though there was a flood. But Yeah, you left neutral feedback, and I don't know what you're trying to tell me, because with neutral feedback, I feel like you want the seller to do something different, or there was something the seller could have done differently, but that just sounds like it should have been positive feedback. Um, but it was neutral. If it was negative, I'd be like, yeah, could you please change that? Because, or I'd probably just do the automated thing and get eBay to remove it, which they're pretty good about doing for me. But yeah, that one, and they sent me some message too that was like, "Hey, I left you this feedback, and I'm gonna change it to positive, just so you know." I was like, "Okay, whatever." Strange buyer. Alan L said, looping back, but do you think with your volume of cards, the eBay standard envelope versus stamp and the eBay fee on the eBay standard envelope may not be worth the insurance? This was brought up by another reseller months ago. Do you think with your volume of cards that ESE versus stamp and the eBay fee and the ESE may not be worth the insurance? Let's see. What does a stamp cost? What is a regular? Because I'm sure eBay is getting a cut of that shipping, but so eBay standard envelope is eBay standard envelope is 74 cents, and a regular stamp is 78 cents, which you would use to mail a 1 ounce letter. So if you paid retail price for regular stamps, it would be cheaper to do the eBay standard envelope. And I know that some people get stamps at a discount, but I've heard stories of a lot of, at least if the discount sounds too good to be true, I've heard stories of postage being fake or fraudulent. So I've just avoided doing postage. And also, yeah, I know you can. I mean, it'd be really easy to self-insure cheap cards because most postcard buyers are honest. And I know some big sellers out there still do ship with stamps, but for me, the eBay standard envelope is just way easier, and I don't want to have to, you know, try to print all those addresses off. And maybe I could figure out a way to automatically print them still with thermal labels, but at that point, I'd rather just do the eBay standard envelope. And I do the claims for whenever a postcard goes missing. I submit a claim every single time, and there's no claim if a postcard goes missing and you just send it with a stamp. So I feel like with the money I've gotten from those claims, it's definitely paid for any extra costs that I would have gotten from buying postage stamps at a discount, at least if I'm buying legit postage stamps, because I don't think, surely you can't get like a huge discount on legit stamps. I don't think. Uh, but that's I think that was the question you were asking. Hodgepodge Home Goods said 1910s to 1950s. 1910s to 1960s mainly views black and white and color. There are quite a few that are of couples posing, picnicking, and going on walks. Some international ones as well. There are black and white mainly. Some international ones can do well. All the European ones, I would not try to do anything with. The European ones just don't really do well here in the US. There can be some that do better, but for the most part, it's pretty hard to find one European ones that do well. Some other more kind of obscure countries can do well. But it's really up to you if you want to go through the trouble. One that I would China is one. If you find early China postcards, that country is definitely worth selling individually, but I'm trying to think. Yeah, for most others, I would probably just bulk them out unless you really want to learn a lot more about postcards. That's only for the international ones. For the US ones that you have, I would just look for smaller towns and look for identified views. Like you said, the couples posing at a picnic and going on walks. If there's a town name written on the back, I would maybe try to sell it, but scenes like that are going to be really common, and um, yeah, you're just gonna look for the more unique stuff, and you don't need to have a ton of experience with postcards to know what looks like a more unique scene. Just um, yeah, things that you wouldn't normally see back in the early 1900s. But yeah, look for identified views, especially of smaller towns. Your big city ones, unless it's I mean, big city postcards can sell for good money, but it has to be an uncommon shot. So, uh, yeah, it's hard to tell you exactly what to look for. But I would look for mostly smaller towns in the U.S., and earlier cards tend to sell better. If you want an idea of what subjects to look for, I can talk a little bit about that. like railroad depots, street views, restaurants, diners. People collect all types of things, so you'd be very surprised at what can sell for decent money. Byron said, I bought a postcard you mentioned on a previous YouTube video. I was stoked until it arrived today and I realized it was a reproduction. They have a lot of neutral and negatives. I won't make that mistake again. Dang, did I mention did I not say they were a copycat? Or maybe the postcard that I was talking about was one that I sold and somebody was trying to rip it off. Let me know. Because hopefully I didn't lead you to buy a one of those copycat sellers. But yeah, I would just leave them a negative feedback because they are intentionally trying to mislead buyers. I know they're technically not lying because they say in the title, usually at the very end of the title or in the description, they say that it's a copy or a reproduction. But like if you're just a buyer browsing eBay, and tons of very knowledgeable people have gotten tricked into buying images that are fake because the sellers try to make them out to be real. After your fast food discussion, I want to get a Chicago hot dog at a local stand. It's now a hiked one. Chicago dogs, yeah, we don't have any of those here. We did have a guy in downtown Athens that would set up on like Friday nights and sell hot dogs that I would get hot dogs from every now and then. I don't know what a Chicago hot dog is. Is it just like a large hot dog? I know there's like Chicago pizza and New York pizza, but I don't know the differences in the dogs. um, okay, yeah, I talked about that. I did not leave bad feedback for the seller when the parcel was dumped in the water. It was not their fault. Uh, yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not mad about the neutral feedback. Like I told the buyer, like you can just leave the feedback. It's a neutral feedback. But I just didn't understand what the point of the feedback was because usually in my mind, when a buyer leaves neutral feedback, you should have some type of thing that the seller could have done better. And for that, you're basically telling me that, yeah, your protection worked great and my card didn't get damaged. So I'm like, I don't know why you didn't have a positive experience with me because it sounds like you did. Brian said, how many postcards do you have listed? Postcard Brian here. Welcome into Postcard Brian. I have just over, well, not just over, closing in on 33,000 now. So I think I'm at like, actually, let me just go check. Might as well, it's easy enough. eBay says I am at 32,752. So yeah, quite a lot. They are all behind me. Every single one. And I could tell you where every single one is. Uh, Oh yeah, I forgot to refresh my video to make sure I was actually playing. Oh yep, sure I am. Uh, Alan said, I mean, the reseller said that eBay fees hit you on the shipping. Oh, I see. So you're paying 13% on 74 cents per transaction times 176 cards you mailed off times 52 weeks. Yeah, when I initially created my shipping cost, I built in a little buffer just for the eBay fees on the shipping and like the per transaction fee, which I think is 30 cents. But yeah, I'll probably have to adjust my shipping upwards again soon because I mean, I believe when I started selling, standard envelope was 51 cents if I'm remembering correctly, and my shipping cost was $1.30. Now it's 74 cents and my shipping cost is $1.50. So I'm losing a little bit more on shipping and I'll probably adjust it up to like $1.65 or something here soon. Because yeah, everything's more expensive. Envelopes, thermal labels, sleeves and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think I think I'm fine on let's see, 74 cents. I don't want to do the public math in front of everyone, but I don't think I'm losing money on shipping currently. Maybe after you take off the per transaction fee, I might be losing a little bit, but I still have a little bit of margin there, I think, and I haven't had to raise it again yet. But yeah, the next time that the Postal Service raises their rates, I'll probably bump mine up 10 or 15 cents. Jay Barson says, "Are there any countries that should be excluded in your shipping list due to problems?" I realize that is probably a dicey question. No, it's yeah, just depends on the. I think postcard buyers around the world are pretty much honest people from what I've found. It just depends on the postal service, and you can get into some hairy situations if you're shipping to countries that like use a different set of characters other than somebody. Please tell me what the what are the English letters called, like A to Z. But countries that don't use those letters and use like different characters, South Korea, China, Japan, you could maybe get in a little bit of trouble or have more problems with because it's more difficult to translate the address from English characters to their native language. So countries like that possibly could have more issues. Um, when I did shipping internationally directly to buyers myself, I never had any issues, and I think I just had it wide open to any country. And now that I do eBay international shipping, just whatever country, I think eBay may have some countries they exclude that they don't ship to, but I just do all the countries that eBay international shipping sends to, and I don't have any problems with that. But yeah, I've had the only thing when I was shipping to buyers directly, I've had some buyers from I think China, and they want me to send with the address in their native characters, and it was pretty difficult for me to like print it, and I had to eventually just like take a picture of their address or screenshot it and then print that image because I didn't have the character pack installed on my computer or whatever. So that was a little difficult. And yeah, I think there can be some problems with translating. And I think you're going to have less problems to countries like Canada and Mexico and all the English-speaking European countries. And the further away you get from the English language, I think there's more problems. But I never really had any problems when I was shipping to buyers directly. Alan said I had 16,000 last month, and with AI software in 6 weeks, I have close to 22,000 items posted, but I mostly sell lower price cards. My sales are way up. Maybe I need to go back and list a little bit more with AI. I only did 200, and I've sold, I think I've sold five out of the 200 postcards that I listed with AI, and that was um, that was a couple weeks ago, so I mean that's not a terrible sell-through rate. That's like 2.5% in the first month or whatever. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not going to just because I like to keep my store pretty curated, and the AI listings will kind of throw off the metrics, and it'll definitely drop my sell-through rate and average sale price if I just list a ton of AI postcards. What I would definitely do is set up a second store, but I know that's against eBay policies, and I know that people have different opinions and risks that they're willing to take. But if it was not against eBay policies, I would definitely set up a second store to do eBay AI listings. But I just don't want to take any risks at all in running afoul of eBay rules and regulations. So I am not going to set up a second store for mine, and I don't really want to crowd up my first store. So that's kind of where I'm at on AI listings. But yeah, I've been surprised with some of the cards that I've sold. I mean, it's a very small sample size, only five cards that have sold. But yeah, every time I see because for the SKU for them, I put AI before I put the number. And I was like, oh shoot, when I would like see one of those that needed to go out. I would return the reproduction. Yeah, I would send it right back. And the sellers probably rely on, I mean, I don't know because I've never bought from any of these sellers, but I would imagine they rely on buyers not um, wanting to go through the return process and, keeping your money. Because, I mean, they have different price points, but from what I've seen, most of them are in the $5-10 range. Some of them a little bit more. Skirfan is at like 11.99, I think. But they probably bank on buyers that aren't happy just not going through the return process. I'm imagining they won't refund you unless you return it. And I do that sometimes too, but that's only because like my postcards are described accurately, and Like the return, if it's a really cheap postcard and I genuinely think the buyer is not trying to take advantage of me, I'll just refund it without having them return it. But if I think there's some fishy business, I'm definitely making them return it before I refund them. But yeah, the reproduction people, yeah, I'm sure they get a good bit of returns, and I would probably return it and leave a negative feedback if it was me, because they are. I know they're technically being honest, but well, it's not that they're being honest. They're not technically lying. They are being deceptive. That's what I'll say. They're not lying, but they are being deceptive. Uh, Byron said you didn't. I wasn't paying attention. Oh, you mentioned a card you sold for like $145 and found one selling too low. I found that, but it wasn't genuine. What card was it? Actually, I don't keep scans, so I was gonna say I can send you the scan of the card, and I'm sure it would be much higher quality than the ripoff that you bought. But um, maybe I can. If you go to WorthPoint has pretty, or I could just get the save the image from WorthPoint for you if you'd like. WorthPoint has pretty high quality images that it keeps. Um, yeah, sorry about that. I do. I've tried as if you watched my what sold video yesterday, I did add watermarks to a couple of my cards that I listed that were higher priced. One was 150 and one was 165. So I'm gonna try to do that going forward and try to curb some of the image piracy. But like a few comments on my video said, it's really easy to remove watermarks with AI, and I think to do it to where you can't remove it, it's even more work. So it's kind of a losing battle. And yeah, I wish eBay would just enforce the policy that you can't list those in the postcard category. And I wish eBay would create a category for, something called like historical reproductions, because I think there's some value in those. If a buyer wants something to hold in their hands, there's a market for those, but I think they need to be clearly labeled and marketed as such. And I think the solution is just a category just for those types of images. And eBay should strictly enforce listing those in the postcard category because they're not postcards, they're photos. And a lot of the ones that I've seen do not have postcard backs. I guess you could get into a hairy situation if the seller actually does make it a postcard and has a postcard back. But eBay could still solve this problem by making the postcard category only original postcards and not allowing reproductions at all in the postcard category, even if it is like a postcard reproduction. And I think, every single postcard seller that doesn't sell that doesn't sell those rip-offs would have no problem with it. Um, I don't list any reproductions myself, even if it can have a little value. Like, I think there's some clapsaddle reproduction Halloween cards that can have a little bit of value, like $10 maybe, that were made in the 70s. I've taken the stance that I'm not going to list any reproductions because I don't want to take the chance of any buyer being confused when they purchase from me. And I already do have buyers confused when they purchase from me because of the other sellers. They're in the postcard category and they say, hey, is this an original postcard? And it's just a shame because I think that is harming buyer confidence. And I think if eBay cleaned up the postcard category and got rid of those sellers, then buyers would have more confidence when shopping and they would spend more money on eBay. So I think it's a win-win for eBay and for postcard sellers. The only people that would lose would be the image pirates. Black Hat Music said, I'm probably the only Canadian seller here, but I just wanted to say that my US sales have slowed to a crawl since the de minimis situation. eBay has put a warning on all of my listings about tariffs. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I hate that that's happened. It's like we're going back in time because what made the internet so great and e-commerce so great was that you could buy from people around the world and buy items that you couldn't find in your own country. Of course, there are restrictions on it, like, you can't buy cigars from Cuba or whatever, but for the most part, it was like wide open, and I thought that was great. But yeah, it's like we're going back in time and becoming an isolationist country, and I don't like it. I'm sorry that it's affecting your business. Yeah, it's a shame. I'm trying to. There's just not really a solution other than someone else getting into office, but that could be years. Mr. Inner Police fan said, "Greetings all." Sorry, I'm just messing with you. I know it's the band. Greetings all from Los Angeles. Hope everyone is well. Listing as I'm watching. I thought I read that as listening as I'm watching at first, and I was like, well, I would hope so that you're listening and not just watching, because just watching would be pretty boring. But no, listening as I'm watching is perfect, and I love to do that too with other people's live streams. I saw, so I don't want to start any unfounded rumors, but I am a member of Popeye's channel, and I did see he paused membership maybe a few weeks ago or a few months ago, and I saw he recently resumed memberships. So if he's going to start making content again, that would be great. Uh, and I know it's a lot to ask for because I know it myself. Like I'm totally inconsistent right now. I've made like one video in the last month, but yeah, I just love consuming content like you all too, especially postcard stuff. Brad said, Daniel, do you ship your postcards in the same sleeve that you stored in with SKU number label, or do you place it in a new sleeve? Good question. Sometimes for the most part, I just ship it with the SKU number label, but there are some exceptions. If it is a more expensive postcard, what I will do is still use the same sleeve, but I'll just put it in a top loader and it looks a bit nicer that way. And they can always just toss the sleeve and use the top loader to protect it. The top loader always doesn't have any sleeves or stickers on it or anything. So that's what I do for more expensive postcards, or if a buyer requests ground advantage shipping. But for every postcard I have under $20, yeah, I just ship it with the SKU number label postcard. I don't reuse labels, so and those labels you cannot really get off of those postcard sleeves. So I would basically be having to use twice as many sleeves or be having to pay for a new sleeve whenever I ship an order. And I know it's not really the expense that I'm avoiding. It's more so the work of just putting every single postcard that I'm shipping in a new sleeve and just the time it would take to do that. But I've never had any buyer complain about that before. And yeah, I've shipped over 25,000 that way. And I just assume because I do this as a collector myself, like when I get a card, uh, if it's in a really clean sleeve, I might keep it in that. But the vast majority of time when I'm getting a card, I put it in a new sleeve or I put it in my album, and I'm not using the sleeve the seller sent the card in. But I would say my sleeves are in all really good condition. I only use new sleeves. I did actually use some that I got from the Georgia Postcard Show, reuse some of those sleeves, but they were just, I mean, they were basically new. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. Home Podge, no, not Home, Hodgepodge Home Goods says, does eBay not make you attach tracking for postcards? I'm confused about the option for stamps. So yeah, eBay does not make you attach tracking for anything unless you're selling like a high dollar thing. Then they probably will. But you can on eBay, as far as I'm aware, still mark anything as shipped without a tracking number. And I still have sellers that do that. Like I'll buy a pair of shoes and they'll just mark it as shipped, and they'll just take it to the post office and handwrite my address, and they'll buy postage at the counter. So you can ship anything without tracking as far as I'm aware of. The limitation for that, obviously, is that buyers can claim they didn't get it and you don't have any proof that that's not true. And you can't be top rated seller without tracking. I think you have to have 95% of your orders have to be tracked to qualify for top rated seller status, I believe. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So, yeah, you can just ship anything on eBay without tracking as far as I know. But yeah, it's not the best way to ship, and it's mostly still older school sellers that ship without that. Byron said, I was the one that left your neutral feedback to get your attention. I forgot to mention that may be a good subject for YouTube. I receive cards often without a sleeve or some sort of protection. Oh yeah, no worries. Like I said, uh, yeah, I just thought it was curious because it seemed like it was a compliment. So, and yeah, I actually didn't get your message, or I didn't see the feedback until you sent me the message, which is one thing I would say to other sellers. I don't really look at my feedback. If I do get a negative feedback, I will look at that. But for me, neutral is just the same as like, um, That's just like any other feedback. I don't even really look at neutral feedbacks. But yeah, I'm glad you sent me the message because that did bring it to my attention. And yeah, I think most sellers know that you should be shipping in a sleeve. But if not a sleeve, and actually, I don't even know why I'm saying that. You should be shipping in a sleeve if you're shipping postcards, because yeah, even if there's not a flood, if it just does rain a little bit and you have the postcard in there without a sleeve, postcards can easily get damaged in the rain. So all sellers should be shipping in soft sleeves. They're super cheap, and just ship in a sleeve. But yeah, I have had a handful actually get damaged and need replacing. It's once every blue moon, full moon, whatever. But yeah, that's a good call out. And if you're not shipping in soft sleeves, you should be doing that. The dogs are different too, and there are two different dogs in Chicago, and also brats. Interesting, brats. Is that like sausage brats? I'm not a hot dog connoisseur. I do love some pigs in a blanket, though. I suck at communicating online. It turns out I can't change it without you asking me to. Don't worry about it. Honestly, I am not concerned at all. I just was a little bit confused, but really, honestly, no worries because I don't care about neutral feedback. And I know some sellers get their panties in a bunch about neutral feedback. Sorry, is that not politically correct? Boxers in a bunch about neutral feedback. But for me, I was just more confused than anything, but now that I understand, that makes perfect sense. So, glad we could get to chat about it. And I was gonna go see because I think I had some other neutral feedbacks that were kind of funny. Knock on wood, I don't currently have any negative feedbacks, but neutral feedbacks just, if anything, they slightly entertain me. They don't bother me at all, though. So yeah, I have some of my neutral feedbacks are funny though. I got one. I don't know when this was, but the feedback was just well, it says past 6 months. They just said generally as expected for an old postcard. And I don't know what would I have to do to get a positive feedback and to exceed your expectations. Would it have to be like I don't even know. One I got, and this was fair enough. They said did not disclose pinhole at top of card. If there is a what's it called, a blemish on the card, I will try to write that in the condition description. Sometimes I forget to do that, and in which case I ask the pictures to serve as the description. But yeah, that's fair enough. Oh yeah, this feedback was funny. I ask a question, and the sender either didn't know the answer or refused to answer. The question was this a picture of the old Bagley High School? And it was a postcard of the state normal school in some town in Oklahoma. And I'm like, I'm not going to do the research for you. I do not know. If I was from that small town in Oklahoma, I would have probably struck up a great conversation with that buyer. But my friend, I am in Athens, Georgia, and I do not know if that was a picture of the old high school. So I just didn't respond. And I didn't want to say anything rude. I'm not going to be like, I don't know, look it up. I guess I could have said, I'm sorry, I don't know. But I, I, I don't respond to a lot of messages because some buyers are just like on one with some of their messages. Oh, yeah, I did get this feedback. Um, They said shipping should reflect the true shipping cost stated was less than $1 for all three cards. I did reply to that one because I said I refunded the difference in shipping costs. They purchased three different postcards in three separate transactions, which is why they paid more for shipping. Unfortunately, there is no way to combine shipping costs automatically if orders are placed at different times throughout the day. And then I just said, please wait until all items that are in your cart to check out if you wish to receive a combined shipping discount. And I didn't say this, or if you just message me. But yeah, that's just one that slipped through the cracks and they left me a neutral. I don't really. That's fair, I guess. But also, like, I would just communicate with a seller before you leave a neutral feedback. And I do now put that in my listings that I believe I say you need to purchase everything at once or message me if you want combined shipping, just to cover my bases in case one slips through the cracks. Daisy said, "Are you talking about?" Sorry, I'm behind in the chat, everyone. Daisy said, "Are you talking about eBay's listing AI?" No, the one I used is List Easier, which yeah, I didn't have any trouble with. Um, but yeah, eBay's listing AI is not great. It cannot create titles for listings at the moment, at least for postcards. Daisy said, "Why is setting a second store against eBay's policy? What is you sell different things?" So it's not against eBay's policy if you are selling different items, but I think it is against eBay's policy if you're selling the same item, like postcards. So that's just my understanding of the rule. I think it is kind of a gray area too, because I know there are quite a few sellers that have multiple stores and they sell postcards in both stores. Like I said, it's just everybody's tolerance for risk is different. So if you are comfortable with maybe going against the eBay rules, maybe not, then feel free to open up a second store. I just don't want to do anything that could potentially be seen as going against eBay rules, so that's why I'm not. But from what I understand, it's totally fine to open up a different store if you're selling like a different type of item. But if you're opening up a store to sell the exact same thing, then eBay could view that as you trying to circumvent certain store fees, and they could, try to shut you down or whatever. But that's just my take on it. If eBay ever clarifies that rule and says it's totally fine for you to open up a second store with postcards, then I would definitely do that for AI listings. I heard DHL is not shipping to the USA right now. They consider the rules too vague to be able to figure out following. Yeah, a lot of shipping is slowing down, getting sorry, I'm still behind in the chat trying to catch up. A lot of shipping right now is getting slowed to a halt or just stopped completely because nobody really understands the rules and how much they have to pay and everything, which is a shame because it's hurting so many businesses. And I know there's a ton of businesses in different countries that rely on U.S. traffic and U.S. purchases, and like these aren't, for the most part, these aren't. I don't know. I don't think it's really helping anyone. Alan said, "I use a new because for me, like if these tariffs were actually helping, you would think my postcard sales would be going up, but they're not. So I don't think it's helping because I am a US based business and the vast majority of my customers are in the US and they always have been, and my business has not gotten better. So I don't think the tariffs are helping. And they're only hurting people, and they're hurting people that own like small businesses. So I think it's not good. And you can have a different discussion about like if you want to talk about like buying cheap stuff from different countries and taking advantage of very low wage labor, then that's a different discussion. And I think tariffs could be used to discourage that potentially, but that's not what tariffs are being used for. Hey, look who's live. Welcome in, Ashley. Welcome to the chat. I listed a couple of Little Rock cards the other day. I thought of you. When I looked them up, I was like, this card isn't good enough to message Ashley about, but good enough to casually mention on a live stream when I see her name pop up. No, it was just a cool Little Rock. I think it was it ended up selling for like 20 bucks. It was a cool butterfly greetings from Little Rock. But I'd seen a few that had sold before. But if I find a knockout Little Rock card, I will message you. There is a seller in Australia who sells nothing but reproductions. I don't even know if he is in Australia or that's just where he says he is. Because I think they ship from the U.S. I want to say he downloads them from every archives, museum, etc. website he can find. Many of the organizations require a fee for commercial use. Yeah, that's Rusty Gold, old Rusty Gold, I believe. I've never bought from him, so let me know if they actually come from Australia. But I know it says he's in Australia. Okay, I must be conflating top rated status with policy because I knew you could get dinged without it for top rated. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. No, there are some pitfalls to it, but you can definitely ship anything on eBay without track for the most part, unless it's like something that has to go to an authenticator, I think, like some Jordans or whatever, or a graded baseball card. How did you pick Mailseum as your name? Is there an interesting story to it? Not super interesting, but I did pay somebody, a branding consultant, nothing like crazy, just somebody on Fiverr. I've had a lot of good luck with freelancers on Fiverr, actually. I've worked with them to build my website and to get Mailseum, but she came up with three different names, or three or four different names, maybe more, maybe like four or five. And Maleseum was the winner, but she came up with some. She had a history of making like some really creative names, and let me just give her a shout out. Uh, um, I thought I knew her name, but maybe not, because I'm not finding. Maybe she's. Let me find her because I want to give her a shout out because she was great. She created the Maleseum name and she even created me. I do have a new logo now. It's not the one she originally created, but I'm still using like the banner she created for me on social media, and I got a whole package and it was really affordable and I was very satisfied. Um, I'm just I swore I have her name. Maybe she deactivated her Fiverr profile. Sorry everyone, one second. But yeah, I don't necessarily I what was I called before? I wasn't always Museum. I think I was just like Daniel's Vintage Postcards or something like that. But it's been so long I forget. Um oh, yeah, she just changed her last name on Fiverr, I think. Or her middle name or whatever. Here we go. Yeah, yeah, she's top rated for names and slogans. Bootstrap branding. Okay, I cannot type. Well, part of the problem is I have a cord going across the keyboard, but okay, here is the person that did the name that came up with the name Maleseum. Uh, and yeah, she comes up with very creative names. Um, that's why I picked her when I did a lot of research before hiring her, and yeah, all of her names were just phenomenal. She's super creative. Um, she does it all. She does logo design. She'll come up with a name for you. But yeah, I she gave me more choices to choose from than that. I picked Maleseum because I just loved how unique it was, and obviously like the combined mail and museum. And I didn't want to be like every other postcard seller where it's just something something postcards or this postcards. I didn't want postcards in the name. And I'm happy about that. I'm very happy with the name. Probably been what 3 or 4 years now, and yeah, I have no regrets, and I love it. And another pro is that Maleseum is basically a word that she created. So yeah, I got all the websites for super cheap and the social media handles and stuff, and that's always a plus. Uh, yeah, let me know if you have any questions about that. The card I purchased was Two Men in Flight, Godshall Brothers, Dayton. Feedback, it's obvious they don't refund. And it did say copy, so I probably can't do an item not as described. Uh, no, you can do a refund. Um, I mean, it's up to you if you want to go through the hassle of doing it. I would do item not as described, and I would just say based off of the listing, I believe that it was an original because that's what happened. And I think item not as described should also, and it may include this, but I think it should include sellers trying to intentionally mislead buyers if it doesn't include that. So I would do an INAD personally if it was me, because you did get tricked into buying it. Nancy said, I have only received one neutral feedback, which was a slow shipping complaint for an ESE I had mailed the same day. I put in a request to eBay for removal 2 hours. I received a reply saying it was taken down, agreeing with me it was the USPS, not me. Yeah, for feedback like that, where they complain about something that's obviously not your fault, and eBay can verify like when you shipped it, eBay will take those down pretty much every day of the week. But yeah, for me, neutral. If I tried to get rid of every neutral I got, it would just be like playing whack-a-mole. And like I said, I don't really mind about neutral. Some of them are funny, some of them are like, oh, fair enough. But yeah, negative I do try to get removed, and I've only had a couple, and I've gotten both of those removed because they were complaints about shipping time too. But yeah, I try to do my best to not get any neutral or negative feedback. Although, yeah, neutral does not really bother me. My sales are way up, but we sell everything. Go tariffs, go. Maybe that's the key then. Postcard sellers. Uh, yeah, I feel like, you know, with people in the US that buy postcards, they were pretty much only buying from US sellers anyway. So the tariffs really only affect the out of the country US, or yeah, the US buyers that buy out of the country are who the tariffs affect. But I could see if your business is selling things that people normally buy from that gets shipped over from China or something, I could see you potentially benefiting from the tariffs. But yeah, it definitely is a tax on consumers for the most part because the reason why they're buying from somebody else is that it's cheaper. You're right, it is Rusty. Yeah, Rusty is the old Australian. Does that come from Australia? Ashley said, no, I love butterfly greeting cards from Little Rock. Yeah, sorry, I should have hit you up. I was just like, okay, this card's a little bit too common for Ashley. It's probably too basic. Sorry, the next one I find, I'll let you know. Uh, but yeah, it was a cool card. I like the butterfly greetings too. They're really neat, I think, and they're really a unique way of doing the multi views. Some of the multi views are just like them, like they just splat them on the card, and those don't sell well, and I don't really like those. But the butterfly ones are cool, and there are some. I think there's some other kind of unique ones that I'm not thinking of right now. You're right, it is Rusty. I don't know if he really lives in Australia. There is some postcard seller I bought from a card for me to collect that says they're in like some European country, but the card shipped from the U.S. So it could just be where he's based as a seller, and he could be like I don't know doing like a print on demand thing in the U.S. I don't know. Brad said I do like Mailsy as a name. It's easy to remember. Yeah, I just didn't want to be another, fill in the blank vintage postcards. No offense to everyone else whose name is fill in the blank vintage postcards. But as for me and my store, I'm happy with the name eBay. All right, been on for an hour. Great live stream. Thanks everybody for coming in today. I am going to do my darndest to be on next week as well. Knock on wood, hopefully we don't have anything go wrong, like getting sick or breaking an ankle or, cat getting sick. So fingers crossed. I will do a what sold and a live stream next Tuesday. What I'm going to try to do going forward is do a what sold video on Monday where I say that I'm going live on Tuesday. So then you won't have to like wonder if is he going live or is he not going live. So you can just check the live stream or the what sold video and I'll say there. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming in. It's a fun time as always. I will see you next week. Have a good one. Stay not warm. Stay cool. Stay cool.